Hi, and welcome to 2024 Virtual Jane Con. I'm Kate of Kate and Kat. If you don't know me, I'm an Austen aficionado, Jane Austen coloring book creator, historical sewist, and sometimes DIYer. I want to say a big thank you to all of the volunteers and moderators who make this event possible, and most importantly to the distinguished keynote speaker herself, to the wonderful creator of this event, Bianca Hernandez-Knight, who does such a wonderful job creating an inclusive environment that's really accessible and allows people to come as they are and celebrate Jane Austen and the many ways she and her works have impacted us all. As I'm wont to do, I'm once again reviewing a Jane Austen inspired film, but this time there's a twist. It is a Hallmark movie. Not only am I an aficionado of Jane Austen, but also of very corny, very predictable Hallmark movies. There are 3 plots stacked in a trench coat, but I love them anyways. This year, Hallmark rebranded February as Loveuary and completely skipped over anything Valentine's themed and instead dedicated itself to 4 weeks of Jane Austen films. But if you're not familiar with Hallmark, let me introduce you to their plot and structure. As Dave and Jeb from the Hallmark podcast, It's Christmas Town, say, Hallmark does make movies for the gentlest of people. Traditionally, Hallmark movies are a quick hour-and-a-half of runtime. They all revolve around a relatively conventionally attractive but approachable, generally straight couple, although they are expanding their offerings lately, who fall in love despite some hiccups. There are no villains allowed in these movies. The only villains are childhood trauma, miscommunication, and miscommunications caused by childhood trauma. They're frequently set in small towns. The closest thing you have to a villain is a woman wanting her own career. Hot chocolate plays a very important role in more movies than you would expect, and Santa Claus is frequently real. I'm not mad about that. But we're not here to talk about Christmas movies. We're here to talk about Paging Mr. Darcy, the 2024 Hallmark film. It stars Mallory Jansen, who played the delightfully wicked Madalena in the tragically short-lived musical comedy series Gallivant, and Will Kemp, who played a very hot but very evil Lord Darnley in CW's Reign. The official synopsis is when an overly serious scholar attends a Jane Austen annual conference, she strikes a deal with the man playing Mr. Darcy and finds her perspective and heart changed. In other words, this is great value Austenland set in a Jansa conference. The plot centers around Dr. Eloise Cavendish, who is a literary professor specializing in Jane Austen.
Miss Cavendish.
It's not Miss.
Madam?
Technically it's Doctor.
Who is up for a position at Princeton. And she is the keynote speaker at this JALA conference, the Jane Austen League of America. I wonder where they could have possibly gotten the idea for that name. And she's decided that the only way to be a professional and serious scholar is to absolutely disdain anything fun in Jane Austen.
The Jala people can be a little romantic. They have balls and dancing, and some of them even dress up. Not really my thing.
Personally, I like to think of her as a titch autistic, because she does absolutely misread cues with a man on the plane who's trying to flirt with her, who instead she gives a reading list to and then complains to her sister that men just don't like her, even though there's a man literally trying to wave her down.
Your guideline, you ignore everyone, isn't fictional.
That's not true. I just never meet anyone who's interested in me.
At the airport, she meets a Mr. Darcy type.
Very unlikely I would meet any man at a conference that is 75% women, let alone my own personal Mr. Darcy. Eloise, I gotta go.
The lovely Sam Lee, who's there to be her liaison for the conference, and his first task is to drive her there. She refuses because she cannot abide anyone in a costume or anyone having fun related to Jane Austen.
And the outfit and the accent.
Oh, I'm the official Mr. Darcy at the conference. Your carriage
Oh,
orders.
please don't bow again.
We find out that he's actually the nephew of Dr. Victoria Jennings, the department head at Princeton, who holds Eloise's fate in her hands.
Victoria Jennings. She's on the Princeton hiring committee, and I'm up for the job. Plus, my little sister lives in town. Professor Jennings is one of America's foremost scholars. I'm not here to flirt. I'm here to give an amazing keynote and show her that I take Austen seriously.
And also really, really loves dress up.
These events can be challenging. Not your traditional academic conference. The attendees can be so, passionate.
The balls, it's like Comic-Con for Jane Austen fans.
Isn't it marvelous?
Because she's rad. We love her. We stand Dr. Jennings. Then, as any good Hallmark movie or romance novel does, they have to create an unlikely pact and work together to solve 2 problems.
I'll help you get the job. Now, my aunt may seem easygoing, but she is not. I've had a lifetime to learn what she likes and what she doesn't, so I can advise you.
Why would you do that for me?
Oh, I'm not doing it for you.
There is also a literal Mr. Willoughby, Crispin Crane, who is a rival English professor and once played Mr. Willoughby in a BBC adaptation, who is circling around Professor Jennings. and Sam Lee wants to keep him away.
That is Crispin Crane, actor turned academic. He's flirting his way into the job.
You want me to block him?
Yes, my aunt has suffered enough heartbreak. I don't want her to get hurt by some warmed-up Willoughby wannabe cad. Do we have a deal?
Deal. No bowing.
Oh, now that, you see, that is the sort of stuffed shirt attitude that you're going to have to work on.
So they work together, and Sam decides to teach Eloise how to embrace and enjoy the costumes and tomfoolery that come around with the Jala conference in order to impress his aunt and keep her away from the dastardly Willoughby. This includes them making hats, learning how to dance, saving the lawn games, going on an adventure to prepare food, as well as making some homemade syllabubs, because for some reason Sam can really charm the hotel employees. And it culminates in an ill-fated theatrical written by one of Professor Cavendish's students. But fear not, this is a Hallmark movie inspired by Jane Austen, so naturally there is a happily ever after ending, which happens at a real-life ball. And this really does take a lot of cues from Austenland, and quite frankly, it's a love letter to Jane Austen, and you know whoever wrote it has gone beyond reading Pride and Prejudice, although they do reference it a lot. And they have a pretty good pulse on the heart of the Jane Austen community and how we interact, the good and the bad. There's a lot of commentary from Sam's costumer friend about historical accuracy in costumes.
Did you bring your period-appropriate undergarments? Okay, completely inaccurate. There's no period fabrics at all.
Which, as we know, is frequently a big talking point with Jane Austen fans. There's a lot of discussion about snobbery and how to enjoy Jane Austen. Are you allowed to enjoy it by cosplaying and wanting to be a Jane Austen heroine? Are you supposed to take it very seriously and not have any fun with it?
I will not be dancing, dressing up, or pretending to be a teenage heroine husband hunting in a dead century. I'm a scholar, not some Fitzwilliam Darcy fangirl.
Fangirl?
Is there a happy middle ground?
I spent all my time studying Austen, and then I finally get a chance to live it. I know some scholars who look down on Jala as something unserious, as if you had to take Austen seriously in order to understand her. Snobs. Dismal, boring snobs.
There's cute little references, including when the theatrical is introduced in the beginning of the movie.
Complete works of Jane Austen, abridged.
I very nearly leaned over to my mom and said, they're making a reference to Mansfield Park, but I didn't have to because Jenny, the student who wrote this play, makes that same reference in the movie.
I'm going to be casting with members of the conference, and we're going to be rehearsing it all weekend. Like in Mansfield Park. Of course, that didn't work out well for them, so that scene is cut from the third act.
Also, there's some casual nods to the lineage of Jane Austen and Hallmark movies in the background, as Unleashing Mr. Darcy is playing in the hotel room right before they eat some Mansfield chunk ice cream.
A rom-com is now really the time. Nothing else was on except that wedding dress show. Do you have my ice cream?
Praline and Prejudice or Mansfield Chunk?
If you were wondering, it's Rocky Road flavor with a hint of coffee. Why? No idea. My only qualm with the references is that they stuck pretty exclusively to making reference to Pride and Prejudice. Dr. Cavendish even quotes one of Lydia's lines about remaking a bonnet with some ribbon and has some actually insightful things to say about it and what it means about the way she views men.
I do not think it is very pretty, but I shall pull it to pieces as soon as I get home and see if I can make it up any better.
Lydia Bennet. I think that's one of the most telling passages in the novel. Shows us how Lydia views men.
As interchangeable?
Exactly. One bonnet is just as good as another if you pretty it up with a nice piece of satin.
And one man is just as good as the next if he's wearing the right uniform.
But I believe the plot itself and the characters lean less Pride and Prejudice as the movie would like you to think, and a little bit more Sense and Sensibility. At least the relationship between sisters Mia and Eloise is very Sense and Sensibility, as Mia is over the top, loves being in the limelight, and has very dramatic, large emotions.
Mia Cavendish, former star of every high school and 1.5 college musicals. My sister.
Oh, she's comfortable in the spotlight.
And her view of love is that it must be grand and sweeping and loud to be real.
You could be your own personal Mr. Darcy. Ugh, he's in a top hat. You're in your Elizabeth Bennet costume from 10th grade. I'm a romantic. He's an accountant. Love is about putting yourself out there, risking it all. I completely love you, but you don't like me because something that is as important to me as a romantic wedding proposal is just like a big jump to you.
She comes off as a real Mary Ann, whereas Eloise is very buttoned up. She's the older sister and wants to take care of her younger sister.
Everyone has a role in their family. I'm the smart one, the practical one. Mia's pretty and reckless and charming and unlike me, a great dancer.
To make sure that everything is orderly and correct, and she's very bottled up and self-sacrificing, which sounds a bit like Eleanor.
You're a teacher, aren't you?
I told him how much you inspired me.
That's wonderful, but that play was completely your idea.
You know what you tell us in class. Women have to go above and beyond to get what they want.
Because you said Mia was devastated, and she doesn't look very devastated.
Chosen what?
I just wanted to help you to communicate.
And I do appreciate that while outwardly leaning into Pride and Prejudice by constantly referring to Mr. Darcy, I think the film itself actually cares more about some of Jane Austen's other works, primarily Sense and Sensibility, as we do realize that the actual Willoughby is one of the love interests in this movie, and in a fun, Austen-like twist, the man that we think is evil the whole time actually turns out to be good.
It's high time I think about more important things than career.
More important things like Aunt Victoria.
We were post-doctorate sweethearts.
I've just spent the last few days trying to separate my aunt from her one true love.
When usually Willoughby or Wickham would be the opposite, where they seem really charming and are actually dastardly. In this case, Sam has been interfering the long-standing, rekindled second chance Wentworth anybody romance between his aunt and Crispin Crane, the man who played Willoughby in the BBC adaptation in this Austen universe. And this may just be my bias towards Persuasion, but I also think Mia the sister, though she is a very good Mary Ann, also comes off as a bit of a Mary from Persuasion.
Mia, why? What did you do?
What did I do? Why do you always think it's me?
She's loud, she's self-centered, she makes Eloise's life harder than it has to be, although Eloise isn't very good at standing up for herself, so she kind of walks into some of these issues on her own.
I just can't go home.
You want to stay with me?
You got your speech. You have to network.
Mia, whatever this is, I'm not letting you face it on your own.
Thank you. I promise I won't be any trouble.
Mia is delightfully funny. She loves being the center of attention.
Stop everything. No more fun. No more fun without me.
What am I doing? What are you doing here?
Victorian Lawn Games.
Regency.
Regency Lawn and Games.
Why are there flowers in here?
I sent them to myself because I suffered a great heartbreak and mindless spending helps. It's rude of you to remind me when I was so well distracted with Mr. Dolph.
And her whole plot revolves around the fact that her boyfriend proposed to her, but in a way that wasn't romantic enough because he's a real accountant.
He just handed me the mocha and said, "So, there's something I want to talk to you about." I'm surprised you didn't have a PowerPoint about why it was a good decision.
Well, isn't it a good decision? I mean, you two just work together.
Well, there was something about love in the proposal. No passion, no romance.
So she comes to the conference to weep on her sister's shoulder, but then somehow in the middle ends up seeming to flirt with Sam, which really puts Eloise off and makes her doubt herself because she is finally in the spotlight.
For Elizabeth, I was thinking someone who knows the novels and kind of sparkles with vivacity and charisma.
Well, I'm not sure if I don't know if I could...
I'll do it.
But is once again relegated to the shadows because her sister is shining too brightly.
Oh, well, I can help out with the set. That's where I really shine in theater. Off stage.
But as we realize in the end, Sam was really just trying to win Eloise's affections.
Sam, of course.
Sam? Yeah, didn't you know? He spent all today talking with Rob and getting him ready. Where did you think Rob got the outfit?
Like so many Austen men, he must do something of substance to earn her respect.
By the way, I didn't do it for Rob. I didn't do it for Mia either.
Why then?
Turns out that some women can't be charmed. Some women can only be won by doing something substantive.
Oh, I was charmed. I just didn't want to admit it.
One of the themes that comes up frequently and not at all subtly in this movie is being a fool in love.
We are all fools in love.
The film equates being authentic with risking making yourself foolish in public.
Love is about putting yourself out there, risking it all.
I'll mess up. I'll look like a fool. I'll look like a woman pretending to be
Pretending to be what?
a heroine in a romance novel, all right? I'll look like an unmarried woman in her 30s pretending to be Elizabeth Bennet looking for Mr. Darcy.
And as Hallmark movies are wont to do, both of the characters have tragic backstories related to being awkward in high school that still haunts them to this day.
I did pretend to be Elizabeth Bennet once for a homecoming dance when I was 15. I bought the dress from here, and they treated me like I was sophisticated and interesting and like a real-life Austen ingenue. I thought that if Cody Anderson could see me across the dance floor, he'd realize how sophisticated and interesting I was.
Oh, and what happened?
He saw me across the dance floor, and he laughed. And then everyone saw me and they all laughed, and then I ran and hid in the library. Janitor let me in. Nice man.
And there's an interesting thing that happens in a lot of Jane Austen novels where the hero and heroine are foils of one another, similarly to how the sisters are foils to one another in Sense and Sensibility, where they must learn from each other and find a happy middle ground. Eloise is very suspicious of Sam because she believes that he loves being in the limelight, loves attention, as shown by the fact that he wears costumes, where for Sam, wearing the costumes is actually sort of a armor or disguise that allows him to be more himself.
Sam's the shyest man I've ever known. When we first met, he can hardly speak in front of a girl.
You're kidding. He's been bowing and kissing hands all weekend.
No, that's the thing. It's because he's wearing a costume. Started in high school when he stepped in for Benedict in That Much Ado. Sam was a weird nerd. Once you gave him a script and put a little outfit on him, bam, he was the leading man.
So it's all a front?
No. Some people just do better with a script.
Maybe there is something to be said for the confidence-boosting effects of a costume.
But Eloise sees this as inauthentic because costumes must be inauthentic, whereas she is using her intellectual prowess as her armor and must be taught that she's allowed to let loose, she's allowed to want to be the ingenue in an Austen novel. That doesn't make her lesser, as Dr. Jennings already knows. Lovey dibs. So there's a lot of reference to making a fool of oneself, including when Mia's boyfriend tries to propose to her again.
What did you want? You want me to make a fool out of myself in front of everybody to prove how much I love you?
And then finally succeeds when he makes a big show and dresses up at the final ball. And at the final ball, we also have the switch, where Sam finally dresses as a normal man to come and dance with Eloise and has put on a beautiful Baptiste Regency gown made by Sam's wonderful costumer friend.
But if there's one thing I learned this weekend, one thing I've learned from reading and rereading these books that we all love so much, it's that fools and heroines are not separate categories. You have to risk being one in order to become the other. There's someone here with a place on my dance card, if he wants it.
The two of them have embraced the other's point of view and found a happy middle ground where they are going to do some things that are very historically inaccurate.
I'm thinking of something really inauthentic to the period.
Lying.
Overall, I think this is a lovely, fun, light Hallmark movie that's a love letter to Jane Austen with some really wonderful, funny lines.
I wasn't actually speaking to you, sir. Are you on a date with this romance novel cover model reject?
Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is Eloise sometimes incredibly annoying because I made her lean too hard into the I'm not like other Austenites, I'm a serious scholar thing? Yes, but that's how Hallmark movies work, and I can't possibly hold it against Hallmark for doing that. And it did have some interesting, more scholarly takes about Austen, including when Sam and Eloise go to the library, get shushed by the librarian.
It's Doctor.
Oh, okay, doctor.
And talk about Jane Austen's relationship with Tom Lefroy.
Can you believe how many people are convinced that Tom Lefroy was Austen's lost true love on the basis of these two short letters? It's absurd.
What's absurd about it?
Well, she's joking. She's obviously joking. My tears flow as I write this. Come on.
Just because someone's joking doesn't mean they're not feeling.
Good point. Still, I wish people would just admit that she was a fantastic writer without needing some romantic backstory that started it all.
Question whether is she, like Sam, using humor to deflect from her real emotions, or did she really just not need a man like Eloise thinks? Who knows? It's an open question, and it's an interesting one for a Hallmark movie to ask. They're growing, they're becoming smarter. If I had to rate this, I would give it 4 out of 5 bonnets. Thanks so much for joining me as 2 of my favorite romance worlds collided into one delightful month of Austen. And please don't forget to check out the other videos from the virtual JaneCon participants. I've linked them down below. Thanks so much for watching, and in the meantime, keep making movies inspired by Jane Austen.